Hi everyone, it's Vicky here and let's make an art journal page together today. I will be working on my 6x6 watercolor paper and this is nice and thick so it takes any type of medium nicely. And I was inspired for today's project by the product that I got in the April card kit. So you get all those collage papers which are perfect for art journaling. So I'm going to pick a few of them and I'm going to show you how I like to play with them on my pages. Now, collage papers are perfect to break that blank page. If you don't know how to start, just grab one of those collage papers. You can tear off bits and pieces and just stick them down. At this stage, you don't really need to think of anything. This is going to be like the first layer, the background, so it doesn't really matter what you're going to stick and where. I'm just tearing off pieces, sticking them down with my collage medium, and again, both the collage paper and the collage medium, that little bottle, were included in my April Simon Says stamp card kit. Now, as you can see here, my brush isn't clean. Don't worry at all about it. It is another way to break that blank page and it gets you started somehow. So I am going to keep on tearing off bits and pieces and sticking them down. And also notice that as I stick them down, I also make sure that I cover them with my collage glue, just to make sure that everything is nicely sealed down. Now, I'm not going to cover up the whole thing. You can definitely do that. Just take one of those pages and stick it down. But for this project today, I decided to go more randomly, more organically. So you see, I just tear off bits and pieces until I'm happy with the outcome. Now, this is where I'm going to make sure that I cover the whole page with collage medium just all over the place. And then I can go ahead and use my heat gun to make sure that this is completely dry before I move on to the next step. For adding color, I will be using my Distress Oxide sprays today. And this is my way of keeping everything nice and neat. Many people avoid sprays because they are afraid of the mess, but just spray inside the box. And I'm also using a couple of paper towels underneath so that I can protect the rest of my journal. For the colors today, I decided to go with nice and vibrant ones. I'm using Twisted Citron, and then I'm going to throw in a little bit of mustard seed. You can leave it as it is if you like, or if you want to make those move even more, you can spray a little bit of water on top. I absolutely love using the Oxide sprays to add color on my pages because I absolutely love that chalky finish that they give at the end. Now, if you want to keep your project fresh and bright, you can just leave it as it is. If you want to add just a touch of vintage, you can go ahead and add a little bit of brown. So here I'm just using Distress ink and I'm applying a little bit of vintage photo. I mainly stayed around the edges. I even dabbed a little bit at the center of the page, and now I'm even going to add some through that stencil. Now I'm going to use the stencil again one more time later on with my paste, but for now I'm just trying to make my background interesting without turning it into being very busy. And this is why I'm going to add some paste which is translucent. So here I'm using the texture paste, this is shiny one. And if you are a subscriber of the Simon Says Stamp card kit, you do have a little jar inside that you can use for this project. So although it looks white at the moment and milky, it's going to dry completely clear. Now I love splatters and especially white ones, so I am going to add some white splatters by using Picket fence, and usually I do the splattering at the end, but for this project somehow I wanted to do it now. Hopefully you can see the texture, the shine, all the different patterns that I have. I find that this is a lovely background. So now while this is drying, let's work on the focal point. For that I decided to go with one of those crazy birds. It's a very old stamp set by Tim Holtz, but it never gets old actually. It is just adorable. I'm going to stamp that with black permanent ink so that I can color it with my distress inks. And because I'm planning to do some ink blending over the bird, I want to make sure that the eyes are going to stay nice and white, bright. So for that I'm using my embossing marker and I'm going to add embossing ink only on top of the eyes. So that's where the clear embossing powder is going to stick only. I'm going to heat set that. This is going to make the eyes shiny at the same time as it's going to make the eyes resist all the ink that I'm planning to add on top. And you can see here what I'm talking about. As I go with my sponge dabber over the eyes, they stay nice and bright. So here I'm using 3 colors of distress ink. I started with the lighter one, which is Salvaged Patina. I'm moving to my middle color, which is Peacock Feathers, and I'm going to finish it off with Uncharted Mariner. Now I want to create a bird that is going to stand against and pop against the background that we have already created. And since the background is light yellow and light green, there are many different options to go for coloring your birds. You can go with purples, you can go with pinks. Now what I'm doing here is I forgot to color the beak of the bird, and I should have done that before and do the trick that I did for the eyes, but anyway I forgot completely about it, so I'm just stamping that part. I'm going to ink it up with distress ink, and then I will have to fuzzy cut it, just a little tiny triangle, so that I can stick it on top of his face. Now you can definitely do that with a marker if you like. There are many different options that you can color this bird. And also, while I did the fuzzy cutting, notice that I chopped off any difficult parts, so you don't see the feet of the bird or the hair that was the feather that was poking out. Don't worry about that, we are going to add it directly on top of our page later on. And now let's create our cluster where our bird is going to live on top. So I grabbed a couple of ephemera from an old ephemera pack that I have by Team Holtz. I'm inking up the edges. I'm also going to tear this off so that I end up with a lovely edge at the bottom. I'm using vintage photo for that, and I'm also going to use the scissors and just rough up the edges. This is a technique that I love doing because it adds a dimension on the edges of all your ephemera, plus it helps them stand against each other when you are creating your clusters. Now for this tag I'm also going to add an eyelet, and I'm going to set that with my crocodile. This is another opportunity that gives you to add different textures on your project to make it look more interesting. So here I don't only have the paper, but I also have a metallic eyelet as well as thread. I am going to decide where this bird is going to go, and now I'm going to stamp the bird on top of my ephemera, and this way I will end up having all the little details. So I will have the feet as well as the hair up at the top. And now I'm ready to create my cluster. I'm going to stick everything down with my glue. First the tag, then on top of that I was planning to add these, but then I thought why not add even more texture, so I'm going with cheesecloth. A great way to add some extra texture on your project without making it look more busy. So everything is going on top and I'm absolutely happy with how that looks. I'm also going to tear off a little strip of black cardstock and stick it underneath his feet just to make him look as if he's not floating on my page. And as I'm building up my cluster here, I'm also going to use a piece of this washi tape, just stick it down there, trying to make areas that give you lots of layers and make the page look more interesting. Now I do have those chip quotes by Team Holtz for ages, and I decided to use 2 of those as my quote today. So I'm going with those, but just because it is an art journal page and I don't want to add too much bulk, I like to peel off the top and just use this part so that I turn them into thin pieces instead of chipboards. I'm going to just ink up the edges, and again with my glue I'm going to add a little bit at the back and stick them in place. And that finishes the project for today. Here are some close-up photos where you can see all the details better. I hope that you had fun and that you got inspired. Thank you all for watching.